Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Nuance Needed podcast. I'm Amanda White.
And I'm Sam Dalton.
We are here today to talk about Sabrina Carpenter, her album cover, and more specifically, I would say if you're new to this podcast, we often we do like talk about the details, but we often use something that's happening as a way to talk about something bigger, or we a lot of times don't care about the actual thing that's happening that much. We care and are interested in the rhetoric around what's happening, because that's often what is very revealing about digital culture, how it's impacting our mental health, what it means about us as a society versus whether we like or don't like something. We'll share that, but I think the rhetoric and the reactions a lot of times is more interesting to us.
Right. Well, and think about it in your own life, right? Like sometimes you'll have moments where you're mad at something, but it's actually not about that particular thing.
Yeah.
Right. And so with a lot of pop culture stuff talking about therapy, using like a therapy lens with that, it's like we're talking about the thing, but we're talking about the thing that the thing is about.
Yeah, because we're therapists, so it's never just about the thing.
No, and we exist in layers and multitudes, and so now we're just helping you do the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and fun fact, right? In therapy, there is this concept of content versus process, and how content is sort of the details, the surface level things, what happened with your mom. But like the process, the deeper stuff is like, what are the patterns? What does it mean about you? How does it connect to other things in your life? How does it impact how you show up as a parent or a person in the world?
Right. Right. And being able to hold space for all of those things and kind of practice having nuance and perspective for situations rather than honing in on one particular element.
Yes. And while you and I have opinions, we don't claim to have the right take. We have our take. We have things to think about. We have things that we think. But we try to be very careful on this podcast to help you think about things differently in different ways, but not come across as we know all the answers, because these are just thoughts and ways we think about things.
Exactly. And we're not trying to tell you how to think.
Yes.
I think that's an important caveat as well. A lot of this is we are wanting to like model discussion about some of this stuff and how you can kind of sit with, oh, I thought this one way at the beginning of the episode and I'm thinking of it a little bit differently. Or maybe, you know, feeling that you relate even more to how you originally thought about something when you were first introduced to it. So really this is just about practicing talking about some of these things in a layered way and kind of exploring and turning things over and seeing what things mean.
Yeah. Well, why don't you start? Because you had opinions about people's opinions about
people's opinions.
Yes, about the Sabrina Carpenter cover art when it first came out, before the album came out. I didn't have that many opinions about people's opinions before, but now I do. And a lot of times when Sam and I are trying to figure out if we want to do an episode, we will talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. And one of us will be like, I want to do it. And one of us will be like, I'm not sure yet. And then the other person will be like, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I have enough of an opinion. Let's go.
That's exactly what happened here. So, okay. For those of you, we'll do like a very quick drop in here in case like you've maybe kind of heard about it, but you're not really sure. Sabrina Carpenter has been, first of all, she's been at the game for like over a decade. So she is not necessarily she's not a new artist at all.
Right.
However, the level of fame that she's now at is fairly new.
Yeah.
Since last year, which I think also could be credited to her opening for the Eras tour.
Yeah.
She opened for Taylor. And Taylor in some ways has kind of taken her under her wing. They have a collab on Taylor's upcoming album, Life of a Showgirl. So it is pretty big deal, her trajectory over the last 2 years or so. So she came out with her album Short and Sweet last year. And this year she has come out with another album called Man's Best Friend.
Yeah.
And she announced it 3-4 months ago, I think. And she dropped the album cover. The album cover is her crawling on the floor. She is kneeling. And there is a man standing off to the side of the album. You can't see, it's the lower half of his body. You can't see anything above really like his waist. And the man has her by her hair. And
like a leash.
Like a leash. He's holding her hair. And it is insanely provocative.
Yes. And
there was a significant amount of discussion around, is this the wrong time for that type of an album cover? You know, her artistry and her lyrics, people made the comment that they're not deep enough to justify that type of an album cover and being able to say that it is artistic or, you know, conveying some type of a message. And a lot of people were concerned about how sexualized it was. And there were so many different layers to the conversation.
And people were saying that, I mean, Man-Child had come out as a single, but people were saying all this of like the album isn't deep enough before the album came out. The album came out last Friday. So
correct.
5 days or 6 days after we're recording this podcast. And the follow-up has now been also, yes, this isn't deep enough. Yes, you guys said that it would be deep. It would be clear. It was sarcastic. It would be clear. She was, you know, making this statement about how, you know, women are treated, and people are saying, no, it was poppy and fun and sarcastic. So the album doesn't meet the moment sort of what the cover looked like.
Right. My thought initially when the album cover dropped, I don't love it. Yeah. It's not my favorite album cover I've ever seen. I think it was striking in a lot of ways. My red flags were brought back down when I looked at it and said to myself, okay, if I were to put myself in the shoes of Sabrina, what is she trying to convey here? And I think my biggest thing was, if the man's face had been present on the cover, if I could have been able to see his entire body, and if he was posed in a certain way, he had been making maybe like a particular type of face, I think I would feel much more concerned about the subservient, submissive message that sends. We can't know specifically what the message is. She did an interview with Gayle King on CBS this morning, and I watched the interview, and she says the album as a whole is about the idea of control and having moments where, as a woman, you know, in some ways that you're giving up some control, and flirting with that moment of recognizing the conscious decision of giving up some of that control as kind of a way to explore a relationship and what's happening. Yeah. And I think if I look at the cover through that lens, that makes sense to me. Yeah. Because I think this album is about a heterosexual woman exploring her relationship to men, and even more specifically, her sexual relationship to men. And I think the Short and Sweet album had a very like almost innocent, flirtatious sexuality to it. And I think this album, having listened to it, is a much more intense, grown exploration of sexuality in some ways. The lyricism is not that groundbreaking. Yeah. But I think if you look at the two albums, there is an escalation between the two of them. And I think my concern with the level of critique that this has brought in is, first of all, I can't even think of a single time in my life where we have critiqued a man's artistry the way we are critiquing this. Nirvana had a naked baby on their album, and no one said a word about that, right? I think what I have a really hard time with is when it feels like we are just constantly, anytime a woman releases something, and a woman who is not shy about her sexuality and the way she portrays that, and maybe if she's more camp about it, a little more costumey about it, and performative, we get really mad. We get big mad in both directions. And what I find frustrating is I just look at this and I go, I just don't think it has to be that deep.
Mm-hmm.
And I recognize that as a white woman with privilege who is also identifies as straight, there are some people who would say, well, you're not willing to think about it in depth.
Mm-hmm.
And my concern right now, and I think this kind of bleeds over into some of the critique that we've already talked about with
Mm-hmm.
Taylor, is I feel like we are searching for things to feel incensed by.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of wonder if it's things that we feel can be easily boxed up and discussed and identified as like, that's bad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that thing. I don't relate to that thing. And fine, the world is insane right now, and there's so much going on and there's so much happening. What people are not remembering is you are allowed to not like something. Mm-hmm. You can see Sabrina's album cover and be like, that's not for me. Mm-hmm. You can listen to her voice and be like, I don't really like it. Mm-hmm. You can see her persona and her brand as a whole and go, that's just not an artist I relate to. That doesn't mean she herself is a threat to feminism. That doesn't mean she is a threat to the world at large. That doesn't mean that she is a threat to children. Mm-hmm. I think so much of this has been so blown out of proportion because people feel, due to the algorithms, due to the information silos that we exist in, that when they see something they don't like, that thing must be some type of a threat or something that is going to cause harm because they don't like it and they don't agree with it. Mm-hmm. And there is a world where we can have a conversation about the Sabrina album of like, well, what is the purpose of sexuality, right? And exposing sexuality at this level and being so openly sexual in your brand, right? There's a world where we can explore that. To see that as a threat, I think almost swings us so far from feminism, it brings us back to like Puritan conservatism. Mm-hmm. To say like, well, this woman is like, she's over sexualizing and she's like, it's performative sexuality.
The critique that I hated the most was she's encouraging men to be violent towards women. And I was like, whoa. So we are all the way back to blaming a woman for violence against women?
I would vehemently disagree with that. Yes. And I think that is someone who is reaching to fit their own narrative and what they want this to be. And I just don't, I'm sorry, I just don't think it's that. You can fight me with that in the comments, that's fine. But I don't, if you actually listen to the album, it is not that in any way. And exactly as you said, if I now have to again be responsible and these female artists have to now think of how to portray their covers out of fear that a man might interpret that and be violent, that is an impossible metric to gauge. And it brings it all the way back to women are now responsible for the behavior of men.
Well, I think it's also like kink is a real thing. Kink is very empowering for lots of people. Power dynamics exist even in other types of sexual relationships beyond just heterosexuality. And there, I think that it is an interesting exploration of, I mean, I don't like the cover either. I'm not, it wouldn't be, a poster I put on my wall or a cover I even want to buy. I've listened to the album and I don't love looking at the cover even when I do really like the song Nobody's Son. Like, I think the problem is you can critique the album, you can critique the art. And that is a distinct critique. And Sam and I have been noodling around and will do an episode very soon on like who gets to be a critic, what is critique, what does it look like? But that's not what we're doing right now. That is separate from feminism, Sabrina Carpenter as a person, her influence, how it's impacting society, all of those things. So if I'm just in the camp of critiquing the art of it, I don't love the cover. And I don't think the cover being that shocking really matches with the overall tone of the album. I think a lot of it is kitschy, it is campy. I think it is deeper than short and sweet. And I understood it more when I heard her say that it is like tracking an entire breakup. So
Mhm.
like the beginning of still being in a relationship that isn't working to the end and moving on. Yeah, a lot of the songs aren't like extremely lyrically deep. It's pop
No.
music, it's cheeky, it's innuendos. I think it's an interesting thing to play with of like her flirting with this like Dolly Parton sort of vibe. Like I think that is an interesting idea. I think a lot of her persona, you know, people call her fake and things like that. And I think this like persona she's developed is sort of a character, sort of like Chappell Roan's
Mhm.
character. I think it's an interesting thing. So I don't think that persona necessarily matches the album cover. Like the album cover to me evokes like I hate how much I love this a little bit. Like, I hate how I put myself in this position. And
Mhm.
as someone who has been sexually assaulted, has struggled with
Mm.
like, you know, hyper promiscuity as a result of trauma, I think it's a very interesting layered conversation to have that is too bad that was not touched on sort of at all, more than just I hate how I want you to do the bare minimum and I'm so excited for you to do the bare minimum. Like all those songs are good. I just think the album cover, whether she meant to or not, evokes so much like depth around kink and shame and
Yes.
hypersexuality and power dynamics and reckoning even as someone who's straight with liking, loving men, being attracted to men and hating that you love men in some ways, hating that you like are part of this dynamic, which is a fascinating conversation that I don't think her lyrics were able to contend with. But that is separate than whether she's hurting people and whether like we can say did the art do the job? Did the lyrics do a good job of creating this world? And that is separate from saying she's harming people, she's a bad feminist, you know, she's dangerous essentially.
The thought that I was having when you were talking about what the cover evoked for you is I think we've forgotten that that is in fact the point of art.
Yes.
And if you see something that is triggering to you, upsetting to you, it evokes a type of visceral emotional response. That is not indicative that the artist intended to cause you harm
Yes.
by creating this piece. What is happening in that moment is you are having a reaction to that piece because it is causing you to remember some type of an experience, some type of an emotion that you have had in the past.
Yeah.
And it's bringing that up in a visceral way.
Yeah.
And so if someone were to come to me and say like, I just cannot believe this Sabrina cover. I cannot believe it. My question would be why?
Yeah.
And I don't want the academic reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to explore why are you upset by it? What did that evoke in you? Did it bring up memories of sexual trauma?
Yeah.
Did it bring up memories of a time in a relationship where you felt powerless in a position that you didn't want to be in?
Mm-hmm.
Did it bring up memories of maybe when you were involved in BDSM and kink and you thought you really liked it and now that's not your thing anymore? And it brought you back to that space.
Or also, like, you can be scared of the way the direction of the country is headed. You can be scared about this topic without it being her fault. And I think that's the line is like, I get that. Like, it is not the best time in terms of seeing the direction that the country is headed, seeing people being, you know, told to go back to the, you know, Roe versus Wade is overturned, all those things. But I think the problem is when people say she did this when this happens, this is bad, she's furthering this. I don't think you can say that fairly.
I don't think you can either. And I also have the pushback a little bit of with the swing to more repressive conservatism, right? Why are we utilizing that lens to analyze this artwork that is clearly, I think I could give Sabrina credit enough that she had the thought that this would be an empowering piece. I think in some ways she thought it was. In interviews, I've heard her kind of talk about how she wanted this to be an album that did explore power and control in relationships, and
Yeah.
for women to have a space where it can kind of be presented in like a silly and fun way,
Yeah.
but maybe like evoke some of those thoughts.
Yeah.
And so my frustration was like, why are we ripping this open like expression of sexuality to shreds?
Yeah.
When we're also trying to say at the same time, well, no, like we're going too far to the right and we're controlling women, and women literally do not have control over their bodies in certain states. But how dare this woman have an album cover that's provocative?
Yeah.
Like that was the dichotomy that I was really struggling with when I was seeing the feedback was I was like, it just feels hypocritical.
Yeah.
Like it feels like we're judging this person for being an artist, which we've spent years telling women to be an artist. Yeah. Don't be shamed about your sexuality, because we are shamed about our sexuality
and
every day.
The right hates her too. So
hates her. I think my Achilles heel is I am so prone to side with women. Mm-hmm. I am so prone to try to see the perspective of a woman and her decision before I assume that that woman had ill intent.
Yeah.
Especially when we are talking about artistry, right? If we are talking about a political figure, a little bit different.
Yeah.
I put you in that job.
Yes.
You have a different level of responsibility to me and the things that I
also you're
expect.
Like stuff, like your job is not to interpretate like things that can be interpreted in different ways.
No.
Your job is to like advocate for people or pass laws and like listen to your constituents.
Correct. Those are the people we need to be yelling at right now, aggressively.
Yeah.
And some people are. I don't think enough people are.
Yeah.
I think too many people are yelling at each other to be doing more without stepping back to ask like, okay, what can I do?
Yeah.
I have to stop yelling at people, and I just have to start actually doing something for myself to help me feel that I am contributing to moving forward.
Yeah.
And when I see people infighting about something as innocuous as the Sabrina Carpenter album, it makes me really angry. Yeah. Because it's like, this is the exact type of infighting for those of us that have the same types of beliefs, for those of us that do want to support women's rights, LGBTQ rights, like have equity in capitalism, have a more fair tax structure, like whatever list you want to put to that. For those of us that find ourselves in that type of a group, believing that some type of way, when we're sitting there ripping each other apart because we're mad about the Sabrina Carpenter album, or because we're mad that Taylor Swift released another vinyl edition, that is a waste of time. Like those are conversations that are meant to be had amongst like you and your girlfriends on a night out. It doesn't have to be turned into this huge production. And I think someone's going to get mad at me for this, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. But I think it distracts from real conversations. It distracts from real issues that we need to be talking about. And talking about feminism and talking about sexuality are all very important. And I think even more so since the fall of Roe, we need to be having those conversations openly. What I don't want to be seeing is villainizing a female artist who happened to have a sexually provocative cover.
Yeah.
That's where my concern lies right now.
Well, I have a question for you, Sam, that is something that I think about with us of like, how do we decide what to critique? And because right, like we did an episode on the let them theory, and a very common critique of us when we did that was, why are you tearing down a woman? We need to support other women. And I'm trying to like in real time as we're talking about this, just because I think someone, right, could say that we're being hypocritical.
Yeah.
And I think like, what is our line of like, I think you can't say like, we can't, don't critique any women or anything like that. That's not fair. We can't even say I'm only going to critique people that I don't agree with politically. That's not fair. I mean, I think our issue is less about Mel Robbins, and I'm figuring this out as I'm saying it, is the industry, not her. I think the self-help guru culture as an industry, we have much more of an issue with than even Mel Robbins. And I think we used her book, which we don't particularly like, as an avenue to talk about a trend we see. Ironically, and people said, well, you're not talking about Tony Robbins. You're not talking about other people who have more power in the space. And I think that is like a fair critique. I haven't read any of Tony Robbins' books.
No.
So I don't really have an opinion to talk about it. Maybe we should make ourselves read them, but I don't think that many of our listeners are super interested necessarily in Tony Robbins compared to Mel. And I think that she entered the lexicon this year in such an intense way. And we chose to talk about her also because of the rhetoric we saw on social media. And we both had experiences with clients saying, I didn't like this. Is there something wrong with me? And we saw people also misinterpreting it online.
Mm-hmm. And also notice how we both admitted, like, we're not thrilled about Sabrina's cover.
Yeah.
It's not our favorite.
Yeah.
Like, and that's fine. I don't think that's the art I would have chosen for the album.
I think it would have been much better if she did the cat one.
Yes, I completely agree.
Because it would be cheekier, it would be sillier. Mm-hmm. It just felt more in alignment. But it's her art. She gets to choose.
She gets to do whatever
just
she wants.
Just like some of the other covers that Taylor Swift put out, I think are better than the front one.
I completely agree.
But it's her art, and she gets to choose.
That when she was in her meeting to decide the cover, she looked at that one and was like, that is what my heart wants.
Yeah.
And that's what she got.
Yep.
And with like Mel Robbins, I have no problem with Mel Robbins as a person.
Yeah.
I can, and we talked about this in the episode where I understand why she's doing what she's doing. This is a money-making endeavor.
Yep.
This is a money-making endeavor.
Yep.
And when you stand up with your whole chest and tell me that you have tools that will help change people's lives overnight.
Yeah.
And you have no professional background, I, as a professional, get some latitude to question that and to kind of reassess and add some layers and some insight as to why I find that a little concerning. I didn't want her canceled. I didn't want people to stop buying her book. If you felt aligned with that messaging, I am happy for you, truly.
Yeah.
But with me and my corner of the internet that I have, we look at things a little differently. Yeah. We have some different perspectives. And I'm speaking to that group. And I feel like it's the same with Sabrina. I have no ill will towards Sabrina. I think she is fun. She makes bops.
Yep.
Like she does. Is she the artist I go to when I want like depth and feeling and emotion? No.
Yeah.
She's the artist I go to when I'm on a long drive and I just don't want to have to think, and I bop around and it's fun and it's catchy and it's cute. And I loved the Taste video with Coleman Domingo. It was very fun. I thought her outfits were beautiful. And that is how I enjoy it.
Yeah, the Tears video was like a take on the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which was really cool when you connected that dot.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was so good. I'm so glad you brought that up of like, we can still critique women. What I don't like is women don't get a fair shake from the outset. We don't focus on the content that we're talking about. We immediately demonize the creator of that content.
Yeah.
And that is what I am trying to undo within myself.
Yeah.
With my own internalized misogyny and sexism that we all have. Every single woman has it.
Yeah. And
I try really hard to fight that urge. And I'm not perfect. And I'm not sitting here asking you to be perfect. I'm just, if you saw that and had like a particularly strong response to it, I would just really encourage you to kind of like pull back and allow yourself to explore it at a personal level without feeling that this is something that, oh my God, this is causing harm, irreparable harm on a scale that we won't be able to recover from. And I just think with the climate and everything going on, I am going to be even more reticent to judge a woman for exploring her sexuality and being more overtly sexual. We cannot submit in advance. We cannot repress ourselves in advance because that is what they are asking us to do.
Yeah.
That is what far-right people who are in charge right now are wanting and asking women to do. They are telling us that we are bad for the way we have lived, that we are bad for having wants, that we are bad for having needs, that we have a very particular role that we are meant to occupy, and to veer out of that is bad. And I refuse to my marrow to submit to that vision. And I refuse to hold women to that standard. Mm-hmm. And if Mel Robbins was getting ripped to shreds on a personal level because she made a comment about her sexuality and the way that she is, I would defend her in the same way. Mm-hmm. Because I critique the work. I critique the fact that she is standing up and saying, I know how to fix your life. That's a very bold statement that deserves
5,
some exploration.
4, 3, 2,
1. High five yourself in the mirror. Those are 3 very bold statements.
I had to.
No, it's because it's ridiculous, but it works because it's short, sweet, and to the point, and people leave feeling that they have some magical answer that's going to fix them. And I, as a professional who know that's not true, get to spend time saying, yeah, I don't really like that. Mm-hmm. It just makes me frustrated how we think that we're being so insightful by making something like complex and complicated and this is the meaning that you're not understanding and you're not seeing. And it's like, fine, maybe in some ways that's true. I refuse to see Sabrina Carpenter as evil or trying to inflict harm or intentionally trying to harm people simply because she, as a grown woman, a grown adult, is creating content for other grown adults to explore their relationship to sexuality.
Well, I think that is part of the other problem is that she was a Disney star for so many years. She does, which you can critique, and I have also, right? She has played into some of these tropes about sort of like girlhood and being young and some of that, which I don't love. But I think you can critique that. But I also think that is part of the problem is that people are saying like this should be for kids. And like she has never said that she's for kids. And I do think part of the problem, which we've talked about ad nauseum on this podcast, is there aren't separate spaces anymore for tweens and teens. And they go on TikTok and this is what they see. Sabrina should be able to have a show with a heart-shaped stage, and that doesn't mean that she's saying she's for kids. But yeah, I think it is an interesting overlap of this whole like Disney Channel complex and how we don't have that anymore, and we don't really have pop stars for the younger generation. So then it ends up being this complex thing where we get mad at pop stars who never claim they're for kids for not being for kids. And we act like if they make a colorful video or have younger themes in the visuals, that they're advertising themselves to teens, even if they're not. Okay, so if you're listening to this episode and feeling like, oh my gosh, I could actually really use a therapist, we've got you. My practice, Therapy for Women Center, has therapists licensed in 43 states across the country. All the therapists are hired by me, trained by me, handpicked by me, and we really back and support our therapists. We vouch for them, unlike some of these big online therapy platforms. Also, if you're local to the Philadelphia area, we have 3 office locations there. So I would love for you to go to our website, therapyforwomencenter.com, and check it out.
The other star that kind of came up in my mind while this like Sabrina stuff was exploding, which is kind of similar to what you just said of there's no like teen tween spaces. Do you know Tate McRae?
Yes.
There's a part of me that's like a little confused as to why. I mean, have you listened to the lyrics of Sports Car?
I have not. I haven't really listened to any of her music. But it does not come across as being for teens at all. She comes across to me as like already in the I'm a slave for you era.
Yes.
With how she dances and everything. She's a very talented dancer.
Very talented dancer. And a lot of people are saying like she is this generation's Britney, which fine. But I'm just fascinated as to what is it about Sabrina that invited this level of critique and criticism and hate and frustration when Tate McRae is over here being like a full-grown woman on her album covers, at her concerts, like in her songs. I just find it really interesting.
I think it's because she's very petite.
Yeah.
And she has leaned into this
coquettish,
yes, girlhood sort of, side of her.
Yeah.
And I think she was a Disney Channel star. And I think people loved Espresso. Little kids were singing Espresso.
Right.
And I think that she flirted with talking about sex on Short and Sweet. And that definitely progressed in this album. And I think people don't like that. But I mean, her nonsense outros were extremely sexual. Before then, also, this has kind of been her shtick. Yeah, I mean, I sent you that article that I think it is one of the most fascinating articles I've read about it.
That was wild to me. I had the exact opposite assumption.
Yes. So we'll link it in the show notes. Let me pull it up. I saw a piece on Substack called Men Don't Even Like Sabrina Carpenter. And what's fascinating about this writer is she did like a deep dive into finding out if men thought Sabrina Carpenter was attractive. And based on, I think, going through Reddit, looking at things, asking people, all that stuff, it seems like the majority of men do not like her and do not find her attractive. And the reason they feel that way is that they kind of think that her sexual persona is fake. Her overt sexuality is like over the top. Like she's not natural. Like she wears a wig, Yeah, she's like, one of the comments is like she's disgusting, over sexualized trash. She's a porn like industry plant. All of these like very intense things. And then the interesting thing is the main critique from women is that women are saying she is too male-centric. She is geared towards men. So it is this striking, interesting phenomenon of like women don't like her because they think she's catering to men, but men don't think she's attractive. So where this writer essentially goes to, and then she actually does a really interesting thing where she compares Sabrina to Sydney Sweeney. And she says that, her name, Sydney Sweeney, appears frequently in many of these male-dominated spaces. The two are held up against comparison. When Sabrina is framed as trying too hard, men describe Sydney as effortlessly seductive. Yeah, it's just so interesting how Sydney Sweeney's sexuality, because Sydney Sweeney is like overtly sexual in many places, is considered just who she is, so it's sexy. Where maybe it's because Sabrina's petite, because Sabrina, is more campy, that she is doing it on purpose and men are not interested in that.
But see, to me, what this drives home, even though I had, reading that when you sent it to me, I had the exact opposite belief going in.
Yeah. In terms of you thought that men found her attractive.
I just assumed.
Same. If you're someone that is critiquing her for glorifying sexualization of women, you have to assume on some level that men find her attractive and men are sexualizing her.
Right. So when they don't, it pokes holes in the thesis that she is causing irreparable harm to men, because also, like, let's be honest, this stuff is already happening all day, every day, and has been for time immemorial. Sabrina is not all of a sudden going to be the harbinger of like, wow, men can get incredibly violent during sex.
Yes.
Like, that's just not, I think that viewpoint is very narrow. However, I think what's so fascinating and what the article brought up for me is this idea of being the pick-me. And when men talk about someone being effortless and cool, what they're saying is, oh, this is a girl that could like have a beer with me and watch the game.
Which Sydney Sweeney looks like she could.
And what's so sinister is I'm like, wow, we really are wrapping ourselves around the axle, thinking that we are so decentering ourselves of men. When in reality, this whole conversation and debate is centered around what men could possibly think about this album.
Yes.
And they're not thinking about it. They're not even thinking about it. They don't even care. They don't even like it because it's not for them, because she's not making art for them.
Yeah.
And I felt so vindicated in my own way to be like, oh my God, like here we go debating this whole thing of like a woman being sexual. How is that impacting men? How is that impacting kids? What are we going to do?
Yeah.
Why are we still doing this? Are we doing it enough? And men are sitting over there not caring.
Not even not caring. They're like, I mean, some of the comments, which I guess
so
you could
aggressive.
pick apart of, you know, what is a sample size and stuff like this. But this author seems to have done a really good job of digging into tons of different types of comments. Yeah, of like, she's not attractive and she is too like, she's like Dolly Parton, sort of. Well, can I read one quote that really like stopped me in my tracks from this article? Even when women seem to cater to male fantasies, there's no guarantee of reward. Sabrina reflects many of her visuals associated with heterosexual male gaze through makeup, clothing, and overt sex appeal. And yet, she is mocked and dismissed by the very audience she's supposedly pandering to. This is the deeper and more uncomfortable truth that many feminist readings overlook. The male gaze doesn't merely desire women, it disciplines them. It will still dehumanize the same women it supposedly desires, especially when that desire is seen as not earned through authenticity. In this way, the idea of appealing to men as a strategy of power collapses.
God, that's so good.
Mm-hmm. Because there's even people that are saying that they don't believe she's a woman. Like, that's part of the rhetoric online, too.
Yeah, there are men that are trying to say that she could possibly be trans.
Yes. Which is an interesting, like, overlap also with, like, Chapel Roan,
correct,
too, in terms of, like, this is a character, this is you know, that she's created.
A persona.
Yeah, that she's embodying,
Right.
We don't like it because we can't put our finger on it.
Right.
It's like,
we can't identify what slot she fits into.
Yes, and no one can figure out who she's exactly catering to.
It's so unfair.
Yeah.
And I think any woman that has ever felt like not enough, this type of conversation is a nightmare.
Yeah.
To think of having the world at large applying this metric to you and being like, well, over here you're too short, and over here you're actually too tall, and over here you're too thin, but over here you're too big, and over there you're too performative, but over there you're just a shitty artist. Like, I think I bring myself back to this space of like, what am I getting out of ripping this person to shreds? And everybody has opinions.
Yep.
You can absolutely hate this.
Yeah.
You can never go to a Sabrina Carpenter concert in your life. You can never hit download on Spotify. That is fine. Mm-hmm. You are allowed to relate to certain types of art and not relate to certain types of art. This conversation is in no way saying like, you have to leave this being Team Sabrina. What I would want you to leave this conversation with is, why am I so threatened by this? If it made you upset, if it made you mad, if you had a reaction to it, I want you to take some personal ownership and sit with why. Mm-hmm. Instead of assuming that there was intent there, that there was harm, that this thing is inherently bad, just understand yourself better and see that this thing did exactly what she hoped it would. It evoked awareness of the album. Mm-hmm. It made people curious about the album. It kept the album in the like social and cultural milieu until it came out, and it's still doing that. Like, at the end of the day, she benefited from this conversation. Even if you are mad at her, even if you think that she's too sexual and you are terrified that your children are going to see that picture.
I don't think it's an inspiring picture, though. I don't think people look at that and they're like, that looks great.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, I don't think it is as serious and harmful as people portray it to be. Mm-hmm. And I've never thought that. Even from the first time I saw it, there was a part of me that was like, this is kind of an immature reaction to this photo. We cannot like it. Mm-hmm. I don't think it needs like this magnitude of like assessment, especially to then dive into Reddit and realize men hate it.
Yeah.
They don't even like it, because men right now who are leaning more conservative, what do they want? They want a woman that caters to them.
Yep.
So of course they are attracted to a Sydney Sweeney, cool girl, I have no opinions type of persona. Not saying that Sydney Sweeney doesn't have opinions, but when we are talking about the cool, effortless pick-me girl, that is the persona that we are talking about.
Well, isn't pick me the opposite? Right? Isn't
No.
pick me trying too hard?
Well, pick me is trying too hard, but what pick me does is pick me completely caves to the male gaze.
Oh.
Pick me like completely says like, I'm not like other girls. I really love football. I don't like,
Okay.
I'm totally fine if you want to hang out with the boys. I have no needs.
Okay.
I'm so cool. Like, I'm never going to argue with you. Like, ew, like you're allowed to live your life. Girls are annoying. That is the vibe of pick me.
Okay.
And so Sydney Sweeney kind of, I think physically, she emulates the look of kind of that girl next door. She typically has very simple makeup on. She tends to dress with her figure highlighted, right? And I think she has a much more mature looking figure than Sabrina Carpenter does. And I think men right now, not all of them, but there is a conservative, right-leaning push that men are being drawn to right now, that they would want a woman who just wants to stay at home and doesn't challenge them and thinks they're the greatest thing that's ever happened, and we leave it at that. And I know some of you hearing that might make you upset or uncomfortable, but that is a legitimate issue that straight women are dealing with right now. And I can tell you that as one. A lot of men are expecting a very subservient type of person. And I understand that when a lot of people saw that cover, they immediately assumed that Sabrina was wanting to take on a subservient role because that was a submissive position that she was in. However, it is, to me, if you think about what she could possibly be trying to convey, exactly as you brought up, kink and BDSM and dom-sub dynamics are so much deeper than just, I don't want to have a thought or an opinion. It is so much deeper than that. And I will also give you, the lyrics don't convey that. And I think it's sad because I think there's a part of me that's like, this could have been like a really cool, powerful album with the right type of lyrics. But she's not that. And I also think we have to be honest that like Jack Antonoff doesn't make songs like that. I think there's a world where, it's why some of the albums that he's helped Taylor with have the strongest reaction. And why when they found out that she was collaborating predominantly with Max Martin on Life of a Showgirl, people were like, oh, thank God we need a break from Jack Antonoff. I think he has a very particular sound. He has a very particular vibe and brand to his music. And I don't mind him personally, but I wonder if it was the right production for the type of message that she thought she was giving with the album. If that makes sense.
I think that makes sense.
Especially when in the Gayle King interview, she's like, yeah, like this was about exploring control. And I'm like, I don't hear that in Man-Child.
No, I agree.
I don't hear that in Tears even.
No. But Jack Antonoff also did Short and Sweet.
Right. But Short and Sweet was meant to kind of be like simple.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
okay,
like Short and Sweet was meant to be like very straightforward. Like it was pop bops.
I'm glad we talked about the critiques of how we critique, because I think that's good for us to figure out and constantly be thinking about. I think I want to make sure I've read enough before I form an opinion, and I need to like research and, read from like people who actually study feminist literature and, queer writers. And, I saw some Black women's takes online and things like that too. I just think that I think my summary is just that you can critique art, you can critique work and not critique the person. While I think a lot of times what we say is like things are deeper because we're looking at the meaning, I think things aren't always harmful. And we have to get better as a society at understanding that your reaction is not necessarily how other people are going to react. And your reaction also is not an accurate gauge of what's actually happening necessarily. Just because you felt uncomfortable with the album, like I said, I felt uncomfortable with it, but I also know that it's because of my own history and things that I've been through. So I think our motto is learn from these reactions, get to know yourself and why you're being impacted by them, and we can like use them to grow. But as a society, I agree with you. I think it's really hard when we're just going around and around and around and banging our head. And it's really hard online where people just get more and more and more extreme about things.
In their takes.
And with echo chambers, like we need to be able to look at I read a lot of different takes. I didn't agree with all of them. I don't even completely agree with even the articles that I quoted today. That is what it is to be a critical thinker, is you hear different people's perspectives, you hear different people's interpretations, and then from all of that, you form your own. I think the way when people get more and more extreme, it's often an indication that it's like a witch hunt situation that's happening where people are escalating rather than people being reflective and liking it or not. And you can be like, this cover is problematic, and that is a fine interpretation for you to have. I just think it gets so hard when we start labeling things as dangerous and over-policing women, because then we're right back around to the other side, and women need to be able to, everyone needs to be able to express themselves and their sexuality how they see fit, as long as you are not actually harming someone.
Amen. And I'm really glad that you address the idea of simply because you are feeling something, the feeling is valid, but the reasoning might be incorrect. And I think that's a really spicy take in the way mental health language has been used and portrayed and the way people are interpreting it now, which is this idea of like, if I feel something, I am immediately correct in that feeling.
Yes.
And how this concept applies to this situation is simply because you found the Sabrina Carpenter cover to be problematic does not mean that it is inherently problematic. And even if it is not your job to pick up a pitchfork and say that this person needs to be destroyed because you found it to be problematic. Even if you don't like it, even if you don't want to listen to her, that is completely fine. But to look at something like an album and say, if I'm angry at this album, what am I angry at? Why am I feeling angry? And to pause and say, where could I direct this anger in a way that feels meaningful to me in my life? And I want to give you permission to, my last thought, to say, it was okay if you just found this to be like a silly, fun album. That's okay too. You're not less aware. You're not stupid. You're not misinformed. It is okay if this was something that was just like simple and straightforward to you, because honestly, that's kind of what it was to me. And so you're not falling behind if you saw some of the insanity whipped up about it and went, I'm a little confused. Because I think it's speaking to some larger issues that we're dealing with socially. I think we are being pulled to the more conservative. We have to just be really cautious that we fight that urge to completely submit to that if that doesn't feel aligned with what we believe and what's important to us. If living your life a little more conservatively, being a little more restrictive in things, that's fine. You get to do that. I lived that way for quite some time. And I appreciated when people respected that. But I need some of you to also respect the reverse, to respect that some women are very confident in their sexuality and are completely fine with that. And that some women are very open about those things. And that a lot of women have done a lot of work to be confident and comfortable with those things. And to respect that and move on.
Absolutely. Well, as always, thank you everyone for listening. We'd love to see you on Substack. We have some great content over there. Lately, I just did a whole gaslighting guide. Sam did a great questions for September reset guide. We have an episode about cringe culture on there, and we'd love to see you over there.
Yeah. And also, as per usual, anything you can do to rate, review, subscribe, share, get the word out. It would mean the absolute world to us. It's so helpful. We see all of your reviews, and some of you are so kind in DMing us your thoughts about things, and we just really appreciate you. And we love doing this, and we want to be able to do it for as long as we can. And anything that you can do to support us helps us keep on being the little engine that could.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.